I've always remembered playing a lot of old PlayStation games, and I will never forget the amount of joy it gave me as a kid. But now I don't really get that with more modern games, until I came across Astrobot. I didn't know why I got this same feeling from my childhood, so to understand more, I went on the internet and looked at a bunch of websites, watched a ton of YouTube videos, which led me to the 5 games Team Asobi made. And I think I came to a conclusion. We start off with the Playroom, which isn't a game, but instead a collection of tech demos. You can have this Spot do some weird x-ray thing to your face. If you make him mad, he sets your hair on fire. The point of this tech demo was to show all the different features you could do with the DualShock 4 controller and the PlayStation camera. These little mini games were made by Japan Studio and Asobi Team at the time. Unlike the Playroom, which is more of a tech demo, the Playroom VR is more of a game, and the 6 games that you play are the perfect example of that. For me though, there's 3 games that stood out. There's this cat and mouse game where you're running away from the cat, and for some weird reason getting spanked as well. I don't know, that's just a thing now. There's another similar game where you play as this dinosaur, and the overall goal is you're trying to run away and hopefully not getting smashed. And if you survive, you get into this area, where you pretty much just get into a boss fight. But we get into the 3rd game that really stood out to me. Robot Rescue. In this game, this is the first time we're introduced to Astrobot. Here, not only are you wearing the VR, but you're also playing as Astrobot in this pretty simple platformer. You can use your controller to make this cable-like thing, making it incredibly immersive. It almost makes you think that you're in the actual game helping out Astrobot. And this really showed the capabilities of the PlayStation VR. And specifically, this game mode resonated with so many people to where they wanted this little game mode to be an actual game. So Japan Studio and Team Asobi made it happen. Where the 2 prior games were used to demonstrate a Sony product, Astrobot Rescue Mission was its own game. For this game, it took everything good in Robot Rescue and made it better. Remember the cable that would come out the controller? Well, that was brought back along with 2 different gadgets, which made the game even more immersive than what we got from the Playroom VR. One gadget is a water jet used to help revive plants and cool off lava. The second was the shuriken. It can be fired and can be used in pretty creative ways. This mechanic made it feel as if you're actually playing with Astrobot, but the thing is, it's kind of weird because you're technically helping the character you're playing as, yet you don't feel alone. Nonetheless, it added a physical connection from the game to real life, which not a lot of platformers can do. Fast forward a couple more years, the PS5 was released in November of 2020, where Astrobot Playroom was pre-installed. Here, Team Asobi went back to its roots, making a tech demo for the new PlayStation features. This tech demo made sure to even put a bunch of references to PlayStation, with mainly the consoles and items you have to collect throughout the game. It's a great way to go down memory lane. Now we get to the final game, Astrobot. Like the Robot Rescue minigame and Astrobot Rescue Mission, Team Asobi evolved what they had with Astrobot's Playroom and turned it into a better game with Astrobot. The overall gameplay just felt better. It expands the levels to 90, it offers new mechanics, and it even adds a simple story to give you a goal. There were many things I experienced in the game that really stood out to me. In Astrobot's Playroom, it focused more on the consoles, but for Astrobot, it really kept in mind the characters throughout PlayStation history, giving me that big nostalgia hit. When you collect enough of these characters, they help you unlock a new area in a unique way, helping Astrobot with making a giant ladder, or even swinging on them to get across. Another thing is the new added abilities. You can't lie to me that you didn't find the mouse section pretty cool. It was a good throwback to the PlayStation VR. Also, the casino level was greatly crafted using time stopping at the right moment, and even collecting an iconic characters like Sly Cooper in that level. But out of all the things I've seen, nothing compares to the end credits, where you're still able to play and see all the people who participated in the creation of Astrobot, while using all the abilities you got throughout the game to move forward. Personally, I've never experienced something like this, so it became pretty memorable to me. So what does this all mean? We gone through all 5 games, what's the conclusion? While looking at all 5 games, there was 2 words that came to mind: creativity and innovation, which honestly doesn't seem so special, but what creativity and innovation does is give a brand new experience. A good example is when I played my first game, Sly Cooper, released back in September 24th, 2002 and was put in the Sly Cooper trilogy, so you can play it on the PS3, which was the console I had when I was 6. This was the first time I experienced the game, where you play as this virtual character that you can control and move around the map with, as well as killing enemies, experiencing forward progression progression, everything was completely new. And I think that's why the games from my childhood was so fun and memorable, because it was the first time I experienced it. I can always remember doing this one mission in the game where you had to fight this crocodile boss. In this fight, you have to press all 4 PlayStation buttons in a certain type of order, then you can get closer to the boss and eventually was able to hit her. Being a 6-year-old kid, my reaction time was slow. I tried to do the pattern and get really close to hitting her, but of course I would die. Then I have to go all the way back to where I started and have to redo the pattern all over again. This happened so many times. I would get close, die, get close, die, until eventually I just broke. Tears were going down. Every time I died, more tears would come out, followed with a lot of shouting. It gotten so bad my parents would ground me and told me to get off the PS3. In my dumb 6-year-old brain, it wasn't just a game, it was real life. I was so immersed trying to beat this boss, trying to overcome this obstacle, but I just wasn't good enough. Until I finally got to this one run where I finally did it. I was so happy. Jumping up and down on the floor, calling the boss names. It felt so good. This was the first time I experienced doing something hard in a game and struggled heavily. But in the end, through perseverance, I won. From there, I easily beat the rest of Sly Cooper, and now that memory stays with me to this day. So how does this relate to Astrobot? Well, Astrobot gave me exactly a new experience. For me, it was becoming a small mouse and playing the same map but just on a smaller scale, as well as looking for the iconic PlayStation characters turned into little bots. I also can't forget the great credit scene. That was simply too creative and again a new experience for me. Team Asobi really focused on the quality rather than the quantity, and it really shows. Even though it's a short game, everything has great detail and was thoughtfully made. Adding on to that would be how pretty simple Astrobot is. Anyone can pick up the controller and have fun. Astrobot doesn't give you complex mechanics or a deep story, because most games I played as a kid were really easy to understand. I didn't even need the tutorial. Personally, I just skipped them. Plus, at the time, a game didn't need a crazy story to keep me hooked, since it's the gameplay that mattered. I barely even understood the story when playing these old games. I just knew I did something and can go to the next area. Also, the need to explore in Astrobot is similar to past games I played. For Sly Cooper, it was about collecting these bottles. That's really the main collectible that you would focus on, and if you collect all 30 of them, you can open a safe that gives a cool new move. In Astrobot, there's the puzzle pieces, and after you collect all of them, it gives you a secret new level, as well as the boss that's dressed as iconic PlayStation characters, both promoting exploring the world and trying to collect all of them. Nothing too complicated. Then when I look at something more modern like Spider-Man, yeah, there's a lot you need to collect. I'm not saying a game needs to have less collectibles, but when I was trying to collect all of these, it just felt boring and repetitive. So much so, I'd be watching a video or listening to music while collecting them, taking me out of the experience. And after I finally collect everything, it's kinda just, yay, I did it. So, Astrobot really takes me back to when games were simpler. It's good to note that Astrobot is big on PlayStation's legacy. And again, I keep mentioning the characters. There's over 173 of them to collect. So if you're someone who has been gaming on PlayStation for years, the experience you get being able to revisit the characters that shaped your childhood was well done on Team Asobi's part. Not only that, they also had a cool part at the end of the game where you're flying through space, and the farther you go, you're put in a place to see the PlayStation consoles evolve over time, from seeing the PS1 all the way to the PS5. Even though Astrobot relies on the nostalgia from PlayStation history, it was still able to give a new experience to me, like the games from the past did. Bringing me to my last point. As powerful as nostalgia is, I think it's important to try and get new experiences in the present. So when we eventually get old, like 60 or 70, we don't just remember the experiences we get from being a kid. We also remember the experiences you get from being in your 20s or 30s or even 40s. I kid you not. I can be a 60-year-old man where the world is now like Cyberpunk 2077, and I can tell my grandkids,
"Back in my day, we had Astrobot."
Then I would go on about how Astrobot gave me a new experience. Also, I just want to say it doesn't have to be in a game you can get a new experience from. It can be things you've never done before but want to do. For me, it would be something like skydiving. Sure, that might be my last experience in my lifetime, but if I survive, I know that memory will always stick with me. Another one for me is going to a completely new country, like Italy. Apparently they got the best pizza there, amazing landscapes, and a different culture. Something that's more cost effective that anyone can do is picking up a new hobby. Personally, I think we should all work towards or find a new experience even if it's challenging, because the experiences we get at every stage of our lives are the ones that we'll look back on and smile about in the following years.